With the recent release of Mufasa, we were treated to a prequel of the famed The Lion King. Now, I absolutely love The Lion King, but the animated version, considering I grew up on it and genuinely believe they should have made this prequel to the animated, as I personally think it would have done much better at the box office with true nostalgia and would have been much cheaper to develop. I also would have been able to have fit this into my Disney Animated Universe Theory, which connects all Disney's animated films and some shows into one connected universe. Obviously, they would probably release at a different time considering Moana 2 just came out, but it would still be an added feature to that story. As I was thinking of that though, I began to realize with all of the live action remakes Disney has made, we may have another cinematic universe on our hands. So with that, welcome to Big Flick Energy, and let's get right into the full Disney Remake Universe Theory. For starters, this world is very similar to the Disney Animated Universe, both some different or additional tales, making some antagonists more into protagonists, and unfortunately, having stories that don't tie in so strongly with their animated counterparts. But this is a world that will go very deeply into different dimensions, something that the animateds don't as much. And we do start with Mufasa the Lion King. I won't expand on this film too much, as I'll do a full explanation of how it fits into this world in a follow-up video, but this is a prequel to The Lion King that tells the origins of Mufasa and Scar. Lost and alone, orphaned cub Mufasa meets a sympathetic lion named Taka, the heir to the royal bloodline. The chance meeting sets in motion an expansive journey of an extraordinary group of misfits searching for their destinies. This movie establishes very early on that this world is different from its animated counterpart, as it will focus much more on untold stories of how villains became villains. This is followed by The Lion King, the most financially successful live-action remake, but probably the one that gets the most heat for being a shot-by-shot remake of the animated original. Simba is born to Queen Sarabi and King Mufasa and will be the next in line to the throne and betrothed to Nala. However, Scar, Mufasa's jealous brother and Simba's scheming uncle, wants to rule the Pride Lands for himself. Scar and the hyenas hatch a plan to eliminate Simba and Mufasa by causing a wildebeest stampede. Mufasa saves Simba from the stampede, but he is murdered by Scar. Devastated at his father's death, Simba goes into self-imposed exile and is taken in by Timon and Pumbaa. Years pass, but Simba's past still isn't behind him after he reunites with Nala, and he struggles to come to terms with his past mistakes. Simba soon learns that he must take his place as the rightful ruler of Pride Rock in order to restore balance to the circle of life and put a stop to his greedy uncle's tyranny. It will establish the intelligence of animals in this world very early on, a major talking point in this movie, as is a major talking point in its predecessor, Mufasa, is also the circle of life and the connection of nature to a greater power. We'll continue to see this greater power in Aladdin in the 800s AD, with genie magic and flying carpets and so much more. Kind young street thief Aladdin finds his world turning upside down when he falls in love with a beautiful young girl, who in reality is the gorgeous Princess Jasmine. As Aladdin determines to win her heart, he comes across a mysterious oil lamp, which holds a powerful genie, who may be the key to making his dreams come true. As the duo becomes close friends, they discover that the lamp is also being sought by the Sultan's insidious advisor Jafar, who intends to use the lamp in an evil plot to take over the kingdom and wage war on the neighboring towns. The genie and the magic carpet are where the fun lies in this extremely vibrant movie that is personally my favorite of all of the live-action remakes. We'll see the magic carpet create a sandcastle that eerily resembles the famed Cinderella's castle from the Disney intro, and we'll even throw some sand over it at the end to make it look like Tinkerbell would always do at the end of the intro, alluding to the eventual character we'll meet in Peter Pan and Wendy. Additionally, the genie will tease his power with alluding to pop culture references, rapping, and most importantly, showing a map of his Disney World or Disneyland. All the places featured are famous Disney locations, including Tomorrowland, FantasyLand, Adventureland, and Cinderella's castle. Also, I know I mentioned before that this world isn't the most interconnected, but if they really want it to be, the best franchise that they can greenlight to continue this world is the Kingdom Keepers book series. Now 7 books in with a ton of lore behind it, the Kingdom Keepers would be huge for tying in all these stories in live action. The series plot follows the adventures of 5 teens who, by day, are holographic hosts in the Disney parks. By night, they battle Disney villains like Chernabog from Fantasia, Maleficent, and the Evil Queen to keep them from taking control of the parks, the Disney Entertainment Empire, and the world. They also take control of different protagonists from Disney's history like Jack Sparrow and others. This book series being brought to live action would definitely have to be reworked for film, but given this tease of Disneyland in the live action Aladdin, what better film to tie in all these characters and sort of become the Avengers franchise for the live action Disney remakes? With that though, we continue with magic in this world with Maleficent taking place in the mid-1300s. A pure-hearted young woman, Maleficent has an idyllic life growing up in a peaceful forest kingdom, until the day an invading army threatens the harmony of the land. Maleficent rises to be the land's fiercest protector, but she ultimately suffers a ruthless betrayal, an act that turns her heart to stone. Bent on revenge, Maleficent faces a battle with the invading king's successor. As a result, she places a curse upon his newborn daughter, Aurora. As the child grows, Maleficent realizes that Aurora holds the key to peace in the kingdom, and perhaps to Maleficent's true happiness as well. We'll see Princess Aurora kiss the prince in this movie under a willow tree, a scene which plays out very similarly in The Little Mermaid. Given Maleficent takes place closer to the area of France and Little Mermaid closer to the Caribbean in the remake, this most likely isn't the same willow tree, but it loosely ties these two stories together also through the Lion King's circle of life, as history repeats itself in these movies. We continue to see the story play out in the sequel, Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, taking place 5 years after the death of King Stefan. Here, Maleficent and her goddaughter Aurora begin to question the complex family ties that bind them, as they are pulled in different directions by impending nuptials, unexpected allies, and dark new forces at play. This is followed by Mulan, taking place in 1400s China. To keep her ailing father from serving in the imperial army, a fearless young woman disguises herself as a man and battles northern invaders in China. In my opinion, this is the most disappointing of all the live-action remakes, considering they took out the 2 best parts of the movie, the music, and the dragon. I have no idea what they were thinking here, but it feels like a tasteless remake that has no real tie-ins with other movies in this world outside of the original voice actress from Mulan making a cameo, so we can just move on from here. This takes us to The Little Mermaid in the late 1700s, where, as I mentioned before, we'll see a similar scene with a willow tree take place as in Maleficent, where here Ariel and Prince Eric will kiss under it. In this film, the mermaid princess Ariel is fascinated by human treasures and longs to explore the world above the seas. When she rescues the Prince Eric, Ariel immediately falls in love and is determined to be with him, against her father King Triton's rules of forbidding contact with humans. Wanting to make her dreams come true, she makes a deal with the villainous sea witch Ursula for a pair of legs, but only for a time span of 3 days. But little does Ariel know that her choice to be human brings serious consequences, as she must work to get a kiss from the prince before she falls into Ursula's clutches. In this movie, one of the trinkets Ariel finds under the sea is a telescope, which becomes a big part of her relationship with Eric as they stare at the night sky. I haven't mentioned yet in the remake theory, but in the animated theory, the stars are a huge part of that world. Here we'll begin to see it, as this movie is a movie with both making a wish and staring at the stars. While not making a wish to a star, it helps set up what we'll eventually see in later films. We'll also see intelligent animals once again in this world through Flounder, Sebastian, and Scuttle. This is followed by a film not too many years later with Beauty and the Beast in the late 1700s in France. As punishment for his actions, a young prince is transformed into a monstrous beast by a mysterious enchantress. Only condition is if he can learn to love someone and earn their love in return, the curse will be lifted. Enter Belle, who stumbles upon the castle and is taken prisoner by the beast while rescuing her father. With help from the beast servants, Belle comes to appreciate and love the beast, all while evading a stalking hunter who wants to marry her, known as Gaston. Early on in the movie, when we see Maurice working on his home, a replica of the Sultan's palace from Aladdin can be spotted on his table. What other wonder of the world would be placed on somebody's table in this Disney Remake Universe other than the Sultan's famed Agrabah Palace? It's a small Easter egg, but helps connect these stories together. This is followed by Cinderella, taking place less than 100 years later in the mid to late 1800s, also in France. As I start to look more and more into it, a lot of these stories take place in France, establishing that many of these characters were probably aware of each other in their country's history. One of these characters we know Cinderella was aware of is the next character to get her own remake movie in Snow White. When Cinderella is walking through the foyer of the castle, there's a portrait featuring Snow White herself on the wall in the background. Now, the original Snow White takes place in Germany, but given this Easter egg and the Little Mermaid shifting where Ariel's story takes place from Denmark to the Caribbean, don't be surprised if we have yet another French Disney princess in Snow White. We'll just have to wait and see though until next year. So in this movie, when her father unexpectedly dies, young Ella finds herself at the mercy of her cruel stepmother and her stepsisters. Never one to give up hope, Ella's fortunes begin to change after meeting a dashing stranger better known as the fairy godmother. Another movie that delves heavily into magic. It's a great inclusion into this world that very closely ties into its animation counterpart. But now we'll see two movies that diverge a little bit from their counterparts. And this starts with Alice in Wonderland in 1871. The 19-year-old Alice is betrothed to a dunce of an English nobleman. At her engagement party, she escapes the crowd to consider whether to go through with the marriage and falls down a hole in the garden after spotting an unusual rabbit she remembered from her childhood, arriving in the strange and surreal place called Underland. She finds herself in a world that resembles the nightmares she had as a child, filled with talking animals, villainous queens and knights, and frumious bandersnatches. Alice realizes that she is there for a reason, to conquer the horrific Jabberwocky and restore the rightful queen to her throne. This is followed by its sequel 3 years later in 1874 in Alice Through the Looking Glass. Here, Alice is back in Wonderland, but this time not by accident. She's on a quest to go back in time and rescue the Mad Hatter's family, but in order to do so, she has to find the chronosphere, a device that enables that time travel, which only the human manifestation of time itself has. As she journeys through time in a thrilling and dangerous adventure, she learns more about why the Red Queen and the White Queen don't get along and the actual truth about the Mad Hatter's family. But little does Alice know that you shouldn't try to change the past, but rather learn from it. A very different story, Wonderland could be this different dimension that magic keeps on coming to the main world from. We know Wonderland has a very long history we don't fully understand that may explain why there are so many magical creatures in an otherwise normal world very similar to our own. But you'll see pretty soon that there are some other worlds where this magic could come from. And as I mentioned, this magic can be coming from two places. This other dimension, or other dimensions as I'll get into later, and the stars. We see this magic in Pinocchio in 1883. Hopeful of changing his life with a miracle, Italian woodcarver Geppetto puts the finishing touches on his latest creation, and having put his heart into making the wooden Pinocchio marionette, the lonely artisan takes a step back and makes a wish on a bright star, connecting into what we saw in The Little Mermaid with how magical the stars can be. But the universe always listens to the longing heart. As a result, the mysterious magic of the blue fairy takes over, granting Geppetto's wish in the dead of night. As the essence of life reanimates the newly built puppet, innocent Pinocchio has everything he needs to be a real boy. A big part of Geppetto's wood carving includes wooden clocks, and this is where we discover just how much Geppetto knows about this world, the magic that's in it, and honestly, considering he wished upon a star, I think he knows about the power these stars hold. I personally think Tom Hanks' Geppetto has more a backstory than we really know. Among the wooden clock Easter eggs are Maleficent, Snow White and the Evil Queen, Rafiki raising a lion, which is probably Simba, Woody from Toy Story, which isn't a part of this world but it's still pretty cool, Dumbo, and many others that aren't as connected to this world but are still fun to see. I'm assuming Maleficent and Snow White are through stories passed down through generations for him to be able to build, but Simba and Dumbo make no sense without some external force making him dream of these ideas, similar to the dreams Alice would have, which alluded to her eventual future. Dumbo wouldn't even be a character for another 60 years, so this is a necessary explanation for how he knows of magic wishing stars and how he can predict Dumbo's future. This is doubled down by Jiminy Cricket, who looks like a cricket that most likely belongs in Wonderland and not in our dimension. He does not look like a normal cricket. He doesn't look like all of the other animals we've seen in this main world that look very much like normal animals. From an Easter egg perspective, this and Aladdin are easily the most important. And following up on Aladdin Easter eggs, just 4 years after Pinocchio, we have The Jungle Book in 1887. It tells the captivating story of a brave young man cub who tragically lost his parents when they were attacked by a tiger in the Indian jungle and was then raised by wolves, once again displaying the intelligence of animals in this world. Mowgli grows up surrounded by animals and experiences love and peace until a tiger is set on killing him for being human. Mowgli embarks on a journey to escape certain death and find shelter in a human village. But his journey is far from easy. At some point, Mowgli is kidnapped by monkeys and then presented to their leader, an orangutan who is known as King Louie. When he is kidnapped by Louie, he stumbles upon his collection of ancient artifacts, one of which is very difficult to see, but is evidently the genie's lamp from Aladdin. This means somewhere in the 1,000 years between Aladdin and the Jungle Book, the genie's lamp went from Agrabah to India, which actually isn't the worst trip, especially if it's not the genie we know and love's lamp, but rather Jafar's lamp from the end of Aladdin that we see the genie throw to apparently the Cave of Wonders. But some headcanon here that's more fun to play with is what if it ended up in the jungle instead? It would also help explain how King Louie is this mystical giant animal very different from anything we see in the rest of a more grounded Disney movie in the Jungle Book. Perhaps King Louie made multiple wishes, one of which was becoming a king, another of which was becoming the apex predator of the jungle, and who knows what the third was. Maybe he wished to have the voice of Christopher Walken. It makes his character make much more sense in this world though. With that, we continue into another animal-centric story showing the intelligence of animals with Lady and the Tramp in 1909 New England. While her owners are on vacation, a female Cocker Spaniel decides to travel around the town with a male street mutt. Along the way, they share multiple adventures and deeply get to know each other as they fall in love. Outside of the continued intelligence of animals, there isn't much connecting this film to the larger theory. This world is then continued in Peter Pan and Wendy 3 years later in 1912. Here we follow the adventures of Peter Pan, a young boy who does not want to grow up, how he recruits 3 siblings in London, and together they embark on a magical adventure on the enchanted island of Neverland. Getting to Neverland is different from the animated movie, as here they teleport through Big Ben, which helps establish Neverland as another dimension similar to Wonderland. As they enter Neverland, we see more magical creatures including mermaids that we saw in The Little Mermaid, and very possibly this establishes that at some point King Triton was in Neverland before he came to our world with his daughters. This is also where fairies are from, which helps give a starting point for where other characters outside of mermaids are from as well, like Maleficent, the blue fairy from Pinocchio, and the magic the fairy godmother uses. However, over time, this world, Neverland, and Wonderland have become fused with each other, allowing for the main world to contain magic that wasn't seen before. Thinking about it more now, the scene from Aladdin where we see the different Disney parks on a map may not just be alluding to the future Disney parks, but could also be alluding to different dimensions considering all of the places on the map end in land. We have Adventureland, FantasyLand, and Tomorrowland, which means there would be 3 other dimensions that are getting crossed with the main world as well. Now, what exists in each of these dimensions? Look no further than the Disney parks. Adventureland is a park that includes the Jungle Cruise ride, so we can bring back a previous video I made on the Disney Cursed Universe, including Jungle Cruise, Haunted Mansion, and Pirates of the Caribbean, which also makes sense as the genie's map shows a pirate ship in Adventureland. Another world that is similar to ours in many ways, but evidently different, and sets itself in its own dimension here. I recommend you watch that video after you finish here, and after that, Fantasyland will then be the same world we've been talking about, given it shows Cinderella's castle as its centerpiece. So whenever a new live-action movie based off an animated film comes out, it'll be part of Fantasyland. Whenever a movie based off a ride like the rumored Tower of Terror film comes out, it'll find its way into Adventureland. And then Tomorrowland, we don't have much here, but we do have one movie that goes to this world that we'll discuss down the line. From here though, we continue to another intelligent animal with Dumbo in 1941 Florida. Holt was once a circus star until he went off to war and returned terribly altered. Circus owner Max Medici hires him to take care of Dumbo, a newborn elephant whose oversized ears make him the laughingstock of the struggling circus troupe. But when Holt's children discover that Dumbo can fly, silver-tongued entrepreneur V.A. Vanderveer and aerial artist Colette Marchant swoop in to make the little elephant a star. After this movie in the 1970s, we have Cruella, the origin story of the famed Cruella de Vil taking place in London. Before she becomes Cruella de Vil, teenage Estella has a dream. She wishes to become a fashion designer, having been gifted with talent, innovation, and ambition all in equal measures. But life seems intent on making sure her dreams never come true. Having wound up penniless and orphaned in London at 12 years old, 10 years later, Estella runs wild through the city streets with her best friends and partners in petty crime, Horace and Jasper, two amateur thieves. When a chance encounter vaults Estella into the world of the young, rich, and famous, she begins to question the existence she's built for herself in London and wonders whether she might indeed be destined for more after all. The movie ends showing where the famed Dalmatians end up, which will seem more than 20 years later in 101 Dalmatians in 1996. Here, after a wild chase in the bustling streets of London, struggling computer game author Roger and his pet Dalmatian Pongo, by a welcome twist of fate, are dragged into St. James Park and meet with charming fashion designer Anita and her pet Dalmatian Perdita. Soon, one thing will lead to another, and before they know it, Roger and Anita get married, and Perdita gets pregnant. However, their short-lived joy is disrupted when Anita's glamorous but horrible boss, Cruella de Vil, who forgot her origins under the Baroness, dognaps the innocent 15 puppies with the intention of making a luxurious coat with their fabulous spotted fur. This is followed 4 years later by 102 Dalmatians, where Cruella de Vil gets out of prison and finds another opportunity to go after the Dalmatians. Overall, this is a fun, unofficial trilogy of films that has no major effect on the larger world, but is a unique story in the larger world of the Disney Remake Universe that once again shows the intelligence of animals to an extent. We continue this world with a more magical story in The Sorcerer's Apprentice in 2010, New York City. At first glance, it doesn't make sense how this is a live-action remake, but this movie is based on the Fantasia short film by the same name, with really its only connection being by a name and the sentient mops made famous in Fantasia. In 740 AD, the disciple of Merlin joins to the wicked Morgan Le Fay and betrays his master. However, the other two disciples of Merlin, Balthazar Blake and Veronica, defeat the evil, and Balthazar traps Horvath in a magical vessel, and Veronica merges with Morgana as they are trapped in another recipient. Along the centuries, Balthazar unsuccessfully seeks out the Prime Merlion, the only sorcerer capable to destroy Morgana, using a dragon ring, and he finally finds him in the present day in Manhattan. The clumsy nerd Dave Stutler is chosen by a magic dragon ring, and Balthazar teaches magic to him. However, the sorcerer's apprentice is in love with Becky Barnes and questions whether he is really the chosen one. This is a very different story in this world, but once again shows magic in this world that may be pulling from these different dimensions in an otherwise normal world and normal time period in this world. This is followed by a movie that very heavily ties into the premise of these 5 different dimensions with 2015's Tomorrowland. Bound by a shared destiny, a bright, optimistic teen bursting with scientific curiosity and a former boy genius inventor embark on a danger-filled mission to unearth the secrets of a place somewhere in time and space that exists in their collective memory as Tomorrowland. This shows another character similar to Alice and perhaps Geppetto that can see through time and space due to rifts in these different dimensions. I'll throw the base story for this world not in this timeline, but rather in the Adventureland timeline, effectively connecting 2 other worlds to each other as well. This is further shown with a new castle being in the intro for this movie, establishing this as a new world apart from Fantasyland. It also makes sense considering Fantasyland is held for spin-offs of animated projects, which Tomorrowland is not. And then to finish off this world for the time being is a lesser-known live-action spin-off with Kim Possible in 2019. A straight-to-TV movie that many didn't even know came out. It shows the evolution of tech in this world, potentially through rifts with the world of Tomorrowland, but also just because it takes place in modern day. Everyday teen hero Kim Possible and her best friend Ron Stoppable embark on the freshman year of high school, all while saving the world from evil villains. While Kim and Ron have always been one step ahead of their opponents, navigating the social hierarchy of high school is more challenging than the action heroes ever imagined. With Draken and Shigo lurking in the wings, Kim must rely on her family and friends on Team Possible. Ron, tech genius Wade, new friend Athena, and Rufus, a naked mole rat that continues showing the intelligence of animals in this world, even today, to stop these supervillains. This movie is pretty faithful to the show, but considering the show is only tied to this world because of the animated Lilo and Stitch movie, eventually having a TV show crossover with Kim Possible, there's really not much else here. Maybe, in the live-action Lilo and Stitch movie being made for a 2025 release, we'll see a crossover or Easter egg, but for now, this is the last project in the Disney Remake Universe Theory. For the overall watch order, this main world will be going from the newly released Mufasa all the way to the unknown Kim Possible movie. And then we'll be expanding the Disney Cursed universe as a connected dimension to this one, with Tomorrowland in 2015, which is only followed by 2023's Haunted Mansion, and preluded by all of the Pirate of the Caribbean films and Jungle Cruise. So with that, thank you for watching this video. Please let me know down in the comments your thoughts on this remade universe. If you agree with there being multiple dimensions in this world like Wonderland, Tomorrowland, Neverland, Adventureland, the main Fantasyland, your thoughts on Mufasa, the Lion King, what other movies or shows you think should be in this world, tune in later on in January where I'll release a video solely focused on how Mufasa the Lion King fits into this world. Thanks again for watching and see you all next time on Big Flick Energy.